April. But this is a good...
Sneako, why do you go clean-shaven sometimes, if it is haram to go clean-shaven as a Muslim?
It's not haram to go clean-shaven. It's just recommended to have a beard to make a distinction between you and the kuffar. Is it haram? Like, I don't know. I don't want to give fatwa. It's not, right? Let me go send him the link. Here, you got it. You should get it now. YouTube, come to kick. YouTube, come to kick. Call Sheikh Uthman. What, about a beard? No, I'm not gonna. I think it's okay, bro. I want to show you the video that Marandi just sent me of Iran right now. Let's see. Let's see. Marandi just sent me this video. This is Iran live right now. That's why he's running a little late. I thought we needed to save Iran. Looks like they're pretty good. Okay, YouTube, come now. Let me get this ready.
Just 1 second, sorry.
No problem. YouTube, come right now.
Okay.
Assalamu alaikum, can you hear me?
Delay.
Oh, no worries. I was just watching the video. That you sent me. I can understand why there's some traffic. No issue. And
Yeah, sorry about that.
no problem at all. It's great to hear from you again, Professor Marandi. Assalamu alaikum. It's been about a month or so, and I figured it was worthwhile to speak again because it seems like the missiles have returned and the war has resumed and the ceasefire is over as you predicted.
Yes, I think we all should have been expecting that, and we, of course, are not at all intimidated. We do not want war. We do not like war. We didn't start this war, but we will fight back. And General Soleimani once said that we are the nation of martyrdom. We are the nation of Imam Hussein. And we will not give up supporting the oppressed and the Palestinian people. And we will support the axis of resistance. The Hezbollah organization has been the most heroic of all and its supporters of all in these 2-3 years. As I said before, they made sacrifices for the people of Palestine to draw away troops, Zionist troops, from their genocidal assault on Gaza, to give the people of Gaza a chance. They sacrificed themselves and their families for another people. And that is the height of morality. So we are not going to back down in our support for Gaza. We're not going to back down on our support for the Palestinian people. And what the Trump regime is doing is basically an excuse to support ethno-supremacism and to support ethnic cleansing and genocide. And he does not intimidate us. And we will continue down the path that we have been following, and we will, inshallah, achieve freedom for this region.
Inshallah. And I think a lot of people are starting to change their opinion. There were many people, as we discussed last time, with the reservations to support Iran. I sent you some links too. There's been some criticisms within the Islamic world and especially the Dawah world about what we're supposed to say about Iran. But as this war continues and the objectives become clear of what's going on, they've changed the narrative. Because in the beginning of the war, you remember, it seems like everybody forgot. We have short-term memory loss. the narrative was we needed to free Iran, that the 30,000 protesters that they never bring up anymore, that we were there to free Iran, and the Iranian diaspora, some of them in the West, were saying that Iran's evil and that the bombing is good. That has been completely abandoned. And now what we see is the video you just sent me. We see people waving the flags, and as the missiles fly over, they keep waving the Iranian flag. What is it like in Tehran right now? What is the atmosphere, and what are the people thinking?
Well, as you know, this was all propaganda. What happened, of course, 30,000 people were never killed. That's just fake news produced by Western media and Western regimes because they were paving the grounds for an assault on Iran. The whole Iran is building a nuclear bomb, Iran is killing its own people. That's all fake news that they were promoting for this war that was in defense of genocide, this war that was in defense of ethno-supremacism and a master race or a master people. Otherwise, what happened a few months ago in Iran was a semi-coup. And the evidence is out there now. We saw that U.S. Treasury, Secretary of Treasury said we brought down the Iranian currency to create instability. And then we saw Pompeo and Mossad themselves say that Mossad was on the ground. Then we saw Trump himself admit that we sent weapons. And the evidence is there. Anyone with open eyes knows what happened. It was an assault where they killed hundreds of police officers and they killed a couple of thousands of innocent bystanders. Those who are guilty are those Western regimes and intelligence agencies that were behind this. And those who are guilty is the Western media, the same Western media that has been whitewashing Israeli regime crimes in Gaza and in Lebanon today. Mm-hmm. But the mood in Iran is people are steadfast across the country. The United States has imposed a starvation siege. Of course, that's what they do. They're preventing food from getting in from these ports. They're preventing medicine from getting in. Western media won't say that to you because Western media is a tool. They are a part of the empire. They're part of this genocidal apparatus. The same media that will justify Israeli carpet bombing of cities in Lebanon, they'll call them Hezbollah strongholds, but all we see are dead families and massacred families and babies being pulled from the rubble. The Western media will say we don't have journalists in Gaza. They've been saying that for almost 3 years now, so we cannot confirm what goes on there, as we every day would see legs of children crushed, legs hanging out from inside crushed buildings. But Western media tried to run with the fake rape allegations and the fake beheaded babies in order to provide cover for the Israeli regime. And of course, those Arab regimes in the region that are U.S. proxies that have been promoting racism and sectarianism and hatred for 47 years, they're part of the same apparatus. So people should wake up and recognize what is really going on. Those entities that refuse to help the Palestinian people in order to justify their inaction and their complicity, the sale of oil, the purchase of gas, the trade, the political ties, in order to justify the complicity, they slander the axis of resistance. And now we're seeing the fruits of what the empire did. We see Al-Qaeda in Syria, which is a Western proxy, cooperating with the Zionists and the liberal, the so-called liberal tools that have been imposed on Lebanon in Beirut. The president of Lebanon and the prime minister of Lebanon, who against the law carried out negotiations with the Zionist regime and basically raised the white flag. And what did they get in return? In return, the Israeli regime bombed a convoy, murdering a lieutenant general and his 2 companions. They were martyred by the Israeli regime, even though the president and the prime minister have been trying to appease Netanyahu and the Americans as much as possible. This is the reality that we're living in. And so people have to make a choice. They either stand with the resistance or they stand with the empire. There's no middle ground.
What's the information that we should believe? Because right now we were under the assumption that there was a ceasefire, but last night I was at the basketball game. There was the Knicks were playing, and Steve Witkoff was supposed to be negotiating the ceasefire. Was right there next to Trump, and it's like he was supposed to be in charge of negotiating the ceasefire that fell through because Israel decided to continue bombing Lebanon. And I speak to Israelis all the time and have debates with them. And they claim that they just want to destroy the terrorists. They just want to get Hezbollah. And you tell them that Hezbollah was created in 1982 from the illegal invasion and they're kicked out in 2000. They continue to say terrorists, we just want the terrorists. But New York Times is reporting that Israel's using white phosphorus gas. They're committing war crimes and killing innocent civilians. They're trying to get Hezbollah strongholds, even though they're wiping out infrastructure in Dahi in suburban neighborhoods in Lebanon. Clearly, it's not just for terrorists. So what should we really believe? Because Trump is also saying there's reports that he's frustrated with Netanyahu, that he's saying that he's gone crazy. He's cursing out, saying he lost his mind, saying the reason that Americans hate Netanyahu is because they're continuing to bomb Lebanon. What is the information in Iran? Because over here, we're hearing everything.
The fact is that the Israeli regime are continuing the genocide in Gaza in the model in Lebanon. We saw Israeli officials say we have to flatten Dahia. That's a place where hundreds of thousands of people live, and now there are hundreds of thousands of refugees there. They want to flatten it. They all know what they're doing. They have genocidal intent. They say that, just like they were saying that about Gaza. We saw in the South African complaint that they sent to the ICJ, which is online. They have quotes from the Israeli Prime Minister, and all of these people, by the way, they don't even belong to that land. Netanyahu is Polish. He changed his family name. The president is European. They're all foreigners. None of these people belong to that land. And many of them changed their names to make it sound like they're from that part of the world. They're not. Their DNA is not they're not Semites. They're, for the most part, overwhelmingly, they're not Semites. The Palestinians are Semites. The Palestinians are the people of that land. Many of them converted from Judaism to Christianity. Many of them converted from Judaism to Islam. Many converted from Judaism to Christianity and then to Islam. But they're all Palestinians. Some of them are Jews. But those are the Palestinians, not these Europeans, not these people from Morocco and Kurdish areas in Iraq or from Iran or elsewhere. These are not Palestinians. So they have no right to the land. They are the terrorists. And they've been carrying out slaughter since the beginning. They were murdering and raping and plundering during the Nakba. This is not new. The people in Gaza are from Palestine. They were refugees in Gaza. They were expelled from their land and their home and forced to go to Gaza. They're not Gazans. Gazan was a small town before all those refugees were forced in there and into this open-air concentration camp. Just like many of the Palestinians in Jordan or in Lebanon or in Syria or in Egypt or even the West Bank, many of them are from within the 1967 border. So they are in no position to make any argument about anything. They're occupiers. They're foreigners. They're like the white South Africans. They were not there first. They went and colonized and they subjugated. They have no legitimate right to make any argument against anyone. It's like the Nazis in France or the Nazis in Europe. Whether they were like the soldier guarding the streets, one of the streets in Paris, whether he was a nice guy or not, he's an occupier. So no matter how much they try to say we're dealing with, and these are not terrorists. These are people who drew half of the Israeli army away from Gaza. When the genocide started, Hezbollah entered the fight to draw away Israeli forces from Gaza. If it wasn't for Hezbollah, they would have finished off Gaza. The only reason why Gaza exists today is because Hezbollah drew forces away during the key and difficult times. And then when they battered, and remember, Hezbollah is in a much more difficult position than Hamas was, because Hamas controlled Gaza, even though the enemy surrounded them. But at least in Gaza, they were in control, and Islamic Jihad, Palestinian Islamic Jihad, helped them. Lebanon is a country full of traitors, controlled by traitors who are funded by Qatar and Saudi Arabia and Western NGOs and supported by Western embassies and the Emirates. Hezbollah doesn't control Lebanon. So they spy, they infiltrate, they stab them in the back. The government, the Lebanese government right now is preventing Iran and Iraq from sending aid to Lebanon. They're preventing them from sending tents and blankets and food. And they're preventing the refugees from the south from traveling around in Lebanon to find places to stay. They're blocking their entrance in neighborhoods and towns and villages and cities, using religion and sectarianism to divide the people. Western embassies are behind it. Western NGOs are behind it. Arab family dictatorships in the Persian Gulf are behind it. So people from the south who are refugees are not allowed to move around in their own country. And then some of them have been forced back to go to the south, and they were killed. So the regime, the Lebanese regime, has blood on its hands. And this is not a popular regime. It doesn't have popular legitimacy. In the last parliamentary elections, the Hezbollah-led coalition had far greater votes than the current president of Lebanon. He was installed by the Saudis and the Americans. Why? Because they were in coordination with the Israeli regime. As I said, wherever the Americans stand in this part of the world, Iran will stand on the other side. Because Iran knows that it's carrying out this for the sake of the Israeli regime. Whether it's in Syria, whether it's in Libya, whether it's in Yemen, whether it's in Palestine, wherever the Americans are, the Iranians are certain that what they're doing is against the resistance and to the benefit of the Israeli regime.
Well, there's a valid point to make there. If you look at what's happening in Cuba, it seems like it's going to expand all over the world. They're threatening other countries. But how would you describe, I like the way you described this idea of empire to the Americans. How would you describe the ceasefire and how it transpired? Because it didn't seem believable from the start. They even seemed to change the definition of ceasefire. When they were asked, what does ceasefire mean? I thought to myself, isn't this a pretty clear, it means cease of fire. And they're like, well, less bombs. So it's always these semantics that keep changing. But how did this go from the deal being proposed? It seemed like after Epic Fury, people were tired and nothing was done. The Strait of Hormuz never got open again. You know, they continued to rain down fire and bomb universities, but nothing political was achieved. So they reached some sort of ceasefire agreement, and it seems like it was betrayed, and it was the fault of the Israelis. How would you describe this process and where we're at now?
Well, the Americans and Israelis always are, I mean, the regimes, not ordinary Americans, but the regime in Washington and the Israeli regime are always dishonest. The Israelis, they constantly have ceasefire, and they're the ones who violate them. And then the Western media will justify it. They'll say that the Hamas had tunnels under hospitals, or they'll always find a way. The Hamas fired first. The Hamas did this. I mean, the Western media will justify any ceasefire violation. Right now in Gaza, we have a ceasefire. They've killed, I think, over 1,000 Palestinians since the ceasefire. And then the Western media keep saying the fragile ceasefire. What's fragile? I mean, what's fragile about it? It's the Hamas has been holding its fire, and the Israelis have been killing Palestinians since the ceasefire. 1,000. What ceasefire is that?
And is it true that we just don't see what's happening because the journalists have been killed, mass numbers in Lebanon and in Gaza? It's not like the killing has ended. It's not like the genocide's over. It's that it's just not being reported because the journalists were murdered.
Well, there are still journalists, but I mean, I follow some of the Palestinian journalists and some of the Lebanese people, and we have to unfollow mainstream media and follow these people. There are young Palestinians, there are Palestinians in Gaza who are reporting, but the Western media has always been trying to keep us looking away. I mean, for the last 1,000 people have been murdered since Trump's fake ceasefire. And who, of course, helped Trump bring about that fake ceasefire? The leaders of our region. Sisi, they all gathered in Egypt, if you remember. Sisi, Abdullah of Jordan, Erdogan, Aliyev, the regimes in the Persian Gulf, the Moroccans, unfortunately, the Pakistani government. They all gathered there to whitewash Trump's crimes, and they all went and supported his fake ceasefire, and they praised him, and look at where we are now in Gaza. Where are these leaders? They never gave the resistance a single bullet. What they did was they collectively destroyed the momentum that we saw across the world against the Israeli regime. Remember all those huge protests across the world?
Yeah.
They've all ended because that was a ceasefire. But it was a fake ceasefire. And in Lebanon, it's the same. After the ceasefire between Hezbollah and the Israeli regime, they kept assassinating Lebanese. Most of them were just ordinary people. Every day until this war started again. So the Israeli regime and the Americans, ever since the ceasefire, I mean, they launched the war against Iran, but when we had a ceasefire, ever since the ceasefire, the Americans have been attacking Iran regularly. Just during the last 10 days, 2 weeks, they attacked Iran twice. And of course, Iran retaliated, but it's always the Americans who violate the ceasefire.
And so the
It's always the
retaliation,
Americans who carry out aggression.
Iran will retaliate by striking the airport in Kuwait and attacking the U.S. military bases in the GCC. Americans were under the average American is under the assumption that it's the Israelis that are betraying the ceasefire. That's the way Trump is framing it, that the Israelis are the ones that are continuing to bomb and that the U.S. has refrained. But it seems like there are some strikes today. What is being hit in Iran? And is it civilian infrastructure? Is it military bases? Are we following military procedure or just assassinating children at schools again?
Well, right now the Americans are attacking, and I don't have the details because they're attacking as we speak. But the Iranians will retaliate. Just one thing that I have to correct: Iran did not strike the Kuwaiti airport. The Iranians struck in Kuwait, U.S. bases in Kuwait at night with missiles and drones. But you've seen the footage. The strike on the Kuwaiti airport happened during the day. So that was a false flag operation. Iran did not strike the airport. All those missiles and drones were fired at like 1 a.m. It was dark. That single drone came from somewhere else. And that was, and we've seen many false flag operations. If you recall, at the beginning of the war, Saudi, but also Oman, which was not in the fight. We saw during the first few days drones strike Oman. They wanted people in Oman to think Iran was attacking them, but it wasn't Iran. It was coming from the Emirates. And you may remember Tucker Carlson at the beginning of the war said that in Saudi Arabia, a number of Mossad agents or people working for Mossad were arrested. Why? Because they wanted to carry out attacks in Saudi Arabia. Right. So some of the attacks are false flag operations, and they're intended to stir up tensions between countries. But Iran did strike back at U.S. assets in Kuwait, and it did strike at the U.S. assets in Bahrain, and it will continue to do so. And in retaliation for any assault by the Americans tonight, Iran will strike back in a heavy-handed manner. I have no doubt about that.
Are the Arab states aware that these are false flags attacks? Because right now, amidst this war, we're seeing more proposals from Kushner saying basically, hey, you can get political power, you'll be rewarded financially if you join the Abraham Accords. So although it seems very obvious that Israel is striking the Arab states and trying to blame it on Iran, they are also dangling a carrot of financial wealth and power and saying, Abraham Accords, come join. Is this going to work, or are the Arab states, the Gulf states, going to remain allied with the side that they're allied with?
Well, Iran did strike at these regimes. I mean, there's no doubt about that. I'm just saying some of the strikes were false flag.
Right.
But last time we spoke, if you recall, I said that according to these regimes themselves, during the war with Iran, despite all the damage that Iran had caused to U.S. bases and to their infrastructure, when Iranian infrastructure was attacked, Iran would retaliate because they're complicit in the war. But they themselves collectively say that, I searched on DeepSeek, that like 20 people died during the war. So it shows that Iran was not targeting civilians. Only 20 people in these 5 countries together died. In Iran, almost 3,500 people were murdered in the war. So it just shows that Iran does not target civilians, but the coalition against Iran, the coalition, the Israeli regime, Trump,
Right.
and these regimes and that were assisting them, they slaughtered 3,500 people. They were targeting civilians. In many instances in Tehran, they carried out double tap operations. They would strike places, people would gather to help, then they'd strike again. There's footage of this. I retweeted one where a woman survived the first strike and she was filming and she said her shahadatain and then they killed her.
Mm-hmm.
So it's clear what the American regime and the Israeli regime were doing. And of course, no one should be surprised. Look at Gaza. Look at Lebanon. Look at Cuba. Look at Cuba. They're strangling a nation. And then Western media says this is an opportunity to bring about change from a regime that has failed ideologically. You strangle them and you say, well, look, they can't breathe. Well, you're strangling them.
Yeah.
You know, the hypocrisy of the New York Times and the Washington Post. The opponents of Trump are no better than the supporters of Trump. No one should be naive about this sort of thing. This Epstein class has different factions, but it is the Epstein class. They are ruthless. They are brutal.
You're
They
right.
may hate Trump, but they are empire. They may be more sophisticated, but they are the empire.
I'm ashamed of my country because I see the way that you guys are, the flags are waving as the missiles fly over, and seeing the unity while American media is saying that you're divided and that you need to be saved. Here in America, at the game yesterday at Madison Square Garden, courtside was Howard Lutnick. I'm sure you know who this is. This is the Secretary of Commerce under Trump. He was best friends with Jeffrey Epstein.
The guy who went once to Epstein's home and said never again. That guy.
3 years after Epstein was convicted.
And then it turns out that he was a really good friend of Epstein.
Lived next door. Epstein lived in Building 9, Lutnick Building 11 on East 81st Street in Manhattan. Not only that, his financial firm was in the World Trade Center, and conveniently he wasn't there that day. He was absent taking his son to kindergarten, a workaholic, and his entire firm always seems like was wiped out.
For the first time.
First time.
For the first time.
Never showed up to work, but 600 employees out of the 3,000 deaths in 9/11, they were all part of his firm. And there were even whistleblowers in the Epstein files that were accusing him of taking charity money for the victims of that attack for himself. Again, this is all alleged.
Right.
I don't know. But this guy, this person, is now sitting courtside at the Knicks game in New York City. And like with all these celebrities, you see Jay-Z, Trump was there at the fight. I mean, at the game as well. And he got booed unanimously. I'm sure you saw the video. I tried my best to yell.
I did.
And this is something that will humiliate a man like Trump, a narcissist who only cares about optics. He goes on the news afterwards and says, oh, I'm sure there were more cheers than boos. Absolutely. This is why I wanted to go, to make sure that everybody understands how hated he is, especially in New York City. But you see Albania in the way that they're protesting against the Kushners and Ivanka Trump trying to steal land. And you see the Iranians cheering in the video you sent me, the unified country right now with the flags. Why can't we gather together the same way we go to a game or some sporting event? Why can't we protest the Epstein class? Why are we there? Like the Epstein people are just sitting there courtside shaking hands. DJ Khaled is right next to Howard Lutnick. I'm sure you know, the most famous Palestinian in America who's never said a word to support his people. He's laughing. And I got a video. I saw him doing cheers to Howard Lutnick. It's mind-blowing that there's almost 400 million people here. We do nothing while we see our country be taken away by these people. But you and Iran and the people in Albania, the warriors there, they can.
You know, they're blaming Iran for Albania. The Albanian prime minister is trying to pin the blame on Iran. I mean, it's so ridiculous.
Yeah.
Everything that happens in this world, somehow it's the Iranians behind it.
Yeah.
But it, you know, and that footage that I sent you when I got stuck in traffic and I got here late, and I apologize to you and
No
your
worries,
audience.
no, absolutely not.
I try not to be late, but they were huge crowds. That footage that I sent you was 20 minutes ago, and that's well after midnight. Well, and this is not a weekend; it's a weekday. People have to go to work tomorrow morning.
Yeah.
So you know, this is the resilience of the Iranian people, and they take that. It is a thousands of years of civilization, and combine that with a religious identity that believes firmly in supporting the oppressed and standing up to the oppressor. It is a part of us. We cannot relinquish the people of Cuba. We cannot let go of the people of Venezuela. We cannot let go of the people of Palestine and Lebanon and elsewhere. That's just not an option for us. They have to kill us.
What has the morale been like? Is there's still an internet blackout? Most likely, your internet's it's very good today.
No.
So it's back.
Yeah, the internet is back to normal. They I don't remember when they normalized it, but it was like a couple of weeks ago. I'm not quite sure, but it's been normal for a while. But of course, it's tough. I mean, have no doubt about that. I was at tonight. I was speaking to someone in one of these rallies before I started coming back, and he was saying how tough it is and how economically he's suffering and so on. But he was still there. I mean, he went to the gathering himself, and he was supporting, but he was telling me how tough life is now for him. So the American siege is to starve Iranians. The war, they bombed pharmaceutical factories. You'd think that in the West they'd be outraged, but no, not at all. I mean, after what they did in Gaza and what they're doing in Lebanon, no one should have any respect for these Western journalists or diplomats or elite at all.
Mm-hmm.
But they bombed the Iranian uh, petrochemical plants. They bombed the Iranian natural gas production fields. They bombed the steel industry. So obviously, I mean, they bombed hospitals, they bombed schools, they bombed apartment blocks. So obviously, it's hurt the economy, and then we have the siege. So it's the economic situation is not easy.
Hmm.
But the Iranians are resilient. They're a resilient people.
The
And right now,
arrogance.
what the Americans are trying to do, the Americans and the Western intelligence agencies, and of course the Israelis, is that they're trying to prepare for war with Iran. So they are supporting these Takfiri groups, these Wahhabi Salafi groups on the border with Pakistan to launch an attack in Iran. And then these separatist Kurds in northern Iraq, about 5,000 of them there, to prepare them to launch an attack. And of course, they provide them with the weapons. And then, so if the United States carries out war against Iran and launches a ground operation, they will attack Iran from Pakistan. The others will attack from northern Iraq, and then there are terrorists in Tehran and in other cities, and they'll go to the streets and assassinate and burn down things. That's the objective. So that the Americans and the Israelis, they'd bomb, the Americans would invade, and then you'd have these Takfiris and these Kurdish separatists and these terrorists all working together to undermine Iran. But it's not going to work. It's not going to. It's not. The Iranian people are too resilient and too steadfast. And despite the hardship and the difficulty, they'll overcome. They're going to defeat this empire. They're determined. They're not going to. They're not going to forsake the Palestinian people. They're not going to forsake the Lebanese people. And they're not going to forsake their sovereignty, their dignity, their honor, and their independence. And come what may. And we'll see. We'll see at the end of the day if the Americans succeed or not.
The Wahhabi groups that you're saying they're trying to arm the Kurds, the United States, the CIA groups, they tried to arm some Kurds. You could even hear Trump admit it. And it didn't seem like that worked. Arming different ethnic groups within Iran was not successful. But if they're going to try this again, you're saying that they want to arm Wahhabi groups. You're saying Arabs around the region. Who are these groups, and is this going to be successful?
No, I mean just like ISIS and Al Qaeda in Iraq and Syria, which these were creations of Western intelligence agencies. We discussed Syria before. I mean, you can if people go and read. I mean, there's some good books, and there's some really good people who you could invite. If you invite Alistair Crook, he's knowledgeable about this sort of thing, or Max Blumenthal, or Aaron Mate. They've done a lot of work on this. But they've used these groups, these extremist groups in Syria. They organize them, and in Iraq, and in Pakistan. Pakistan is a country with many problems. Of course, much of its focus is on India. It has poor relations with the Taliban, and there's a lot of poverty there. So it is unable to enforce um, it's unable to have very good control over its borders with Iran. So Western intelligence agencies and their regional allies have traditionally been supporting these groups, these Takfiri groups, and they're based in Pakistan, in the sort of no man's land where the Pakistani state doesn't have full control of the situation. And so they launch attacks in Iran. And just, I think, yesterday or the day before yesterday, they arrested 19 of these Takfiris and killed 5 of them as they were infiltrating Iran to carry out operations, suicide operations and assassinations and so on. And in the Kurdish areas of Iraq, they've also organized around, I think, maybe 5,000 people to attack Iran. So these are part of the plan. And then, of course, they've brought in a lot of weapons into Iran. Some of them have been captured and some people arrested, but there's a lot more.
Well,
And and of course, as I said, the Americans and the Israelis, if they carry out a major assault and the Americans use their ground forces, they hope to use these different groups simultaneously to so that as a combined assault, they would be able to undermine Iran. But as I said, it's not going to work. The Iranian people are united; they're steadfast. The state is strong, and we've defeated the United States and the Israeli regime in the 39-day war. And in this period, we continue to remain steadfast. And if there is a hot war again, if it continues, if it's revived, we will overcome, come what may. It's not going to be easy, and it isn't easy, but Iran will, just like Hezbollah right now. They're slaughtering Lebanese for every day. They're slaughtering tens of people in Lebanon. And the West doesn't say anything about it because they don't care. Western journalists, they don't care. They are employees of the Epstein class. You don't see Western journalists tweeting about the genocide in Gaza. You don't see them tweeting about the children in Lebanon being massacred. I mean, they don't say anything in the media, but even as individuals, many of them have millions of followers or hundreds of thousands of followers. They're all quiet. Some of them I know. Some of them know me. I'm sure some of them follow me on their, all their alternative tweets, the tweets that the Twitter accounts that they have that's not in their name. I know because they tell me they follow me. They know that I always put out or retweet footage of the genocide in Gaza or the genocidal attacks in Lebanon. They see these things, but they won't do anything about it. They won't retweet them. They won't comment on them. They won't show outrage because Western mainstream journalists, corporate media journalists, state journalists, because they're employees of the Epstein class, directly or indirectly. You have courageous Westerners in, reporting on Gaza, but they're alternative media. You have extraordinarily decent Western journalists reporting on Lebanon, but these are again alternative media. These are people like yourself who have their own or small media outlets, or individually they're working and they're raising their voices, and they've had an impact. They've had a huge impact. But mainstream media, legacy media, corporate media, no.
well, there's a
They're
chance
complicit.
for these people to create independent platforms after creating a name for themselves within traditional media. For example, Candace Owens and Tucker Carlson, once they became independent, they exploded in popularity and people respect them even further. Do you think that these are examples, Candace Owens and Tucker Carlson, of being reporters in Western media that are saying what's correct?
Yes, I think there's no doubt about that. Things are changing and the Zionists are losing control. But still that their mainstream media is saying something one thing, and these people are saying something else. The mainstream media is not looking at reality and reporting reality.
Mm.
They are reporting a fake narrative, whether it's Gaza or Lebanon or Iran or anywhere. But people don't believe it anymore because people are waking up.
Mm.
People are the Lego clips that are being put out there. They're having an impact. Why? Because the narrative is so clearly fake that people are looking
Yeah.
for the truth. And so people like Candace Owens and on the right and Tucker Carlson, as you pointed out, a lot of the things that they say are having a huge impact. And then people on the left too, and across the board, they're decent people who are, they're doing their best to raise awareness about Palestine on the left, on the right, and we what is important is that we try to bring people, as many people together, and to keep them on the, you know, to to prevent the FBI and the intelligence agencies to divide and rule.
Right.
What they want is to keep people divided, just like the Takfiris were used in our region for 47 years to keep our region divided. That's their job. That was their job. For
Mhm.
47 years, they were funded by the Saudis, the Qataris, the Emiratis. Why? And others, to keep everyone divided, so that the empire could. In the United States and the West, it's the same thing. Keep the left, the right, progressives, conservatives, keep them at each other's throats. Why? Because when you hate each other, the Epstein class,
Divide and conquer. And that's why any sort of these
they will.
divisive politics that people play into, I think that they're opposition. They're either paid by those people, they're controlled, or they're just fighting for evil. Divisive. Anybody who's advocating publicly against unity is part of they're the enemy, and they're helping out exactly who we're supposed to be fighting against. It's a waste of energy. It doesn't create any sort of progress. And you're right. Many people are waking up, but I do sense sometimes that many of us are getting Stockholm syndrome, where and we have reached a point where everybody's aware of the problem, but there's many people, and I don't think that they're too far gone. They want to be on the winning team. So they see that there's evil, but instead of fighting against it, they like to reap the benefits of what it provides. And so they'll join them, and it's the idea of if you can't beat them, join them. And many people seem to be close to that.
Of course. Of course. That's how it is in our region too. They follow the money. Why would people be on the payroll of these despots in the Persian Gulf? These despots, which each and every one of them have always had relations with the Israeli regime. Every single one of them. We keep talking about the Emirates, but all of them have a relationship. All of them have secret relations. All of them are doing business and trade, selling oil, transporting oil, buying gas. Some have embassies, some have secret relations. So, that's and many people will, when they're on the payroll, they'll justify in our part of the world. They'll do what the people who are paying them say. The same is true in the West. But it doesn't matter. We have to, there are so many decent people out there. There are enough out there to bring about change. But the important thing is not to allow these Arab intelligence agencies, Western intelligence agencies to create division. There has to be unity.
Exactly.
And whether it's people, and you'll see some people. I've seen some people like criticizing Tucker Carlson. I mean, or Candace Owens? What's the purpose? Right now, the focus should be on Palestine.
Exactly.
Why are you pursuing other issues? Deal with those later on when this is resolved. Why now?
Thank you.
Or, for example, you see some people attacking Jews. I mean, right now, I heard that in a poll carried out by a Jewish institution in a Jewish organization in the United States, roughly 50, almost 50% of Jews below the age of 35 believe that in Palestine, Palestinians and Jews should live side by side. That means basically roughly half of Jews under the age of 35 don't believe in Zionism.
Mhm.
They believe in a one-state solution. That means that all these young Jews see right through the propaganda, and the propaganda directed at them is greater than the propaganda directed at everyone else. The propaganda that everyone hears is they hear too, and then they hear it from these these Zionist leaders. They get their own propaganda. So all these young people who are waking up, and then there are those others who. It doesn't mean that the other half support genocide. Many others say we should have a two-stage solution, and so on. They're not happy with what's going on. This awakening is something that we should welcome. And then when you hear people like speaking against Jews, why? Why? When you have people like Katie Halper or Max Blumenthal, or and all these other
Dave
Jews at the
Smith and
forefront of the resistance.
Finkelstein.
Why are they attacking Jews? There's an agenda.
Yep.
Why division? All of this, I believe that. I remember before the Iraqi war, the anti-war movement in the United States. I mean, from afar, I was in the UK. There was a huge anti-war movement in the UK. I was a PhD student there, and I participated in the anti-war movement. But I remember people saying that in the United States, the FBI would send their agents and join, not as FBI members, but secretly they joined these anti-war movements, and they would create divisions within.
Yep.
So that's their job.
So you think that people
So
that seem to be within that are pushing against unity are probably getting paid by some sort of intelligence agency? They could be undercover.
I'm sure quite a few of them are. Some of them are just fools who will be easily provoked, and the others, I'm absolutely sure. I mean, God forbid, if I was a Zionist, God forbid, I mean, may I be crushed under a truck before such a thing happens. But um, if I was a Zionist, if you were a Zionist, would you do anything other than that? If you were in charge?
Yeah. That's why you said it perfectly. When I see people criticizing Candace Owens and Tucker Carlson for small issues, that this is so unimportant when we're at war right now, when there's major conversations to be had. Spending any energy on dividing here when right now there's a mass awakening happening, it's either you're an idiot or just getting paid by the opposition. So these people just need to be ignored.
Getting paid, and he's using your, uh, you know, he's taking advantage of the fact that you're naive. Something. So I could be naive. I may not be on anyone's payroll, but someone who is on the payroll is influencing people like me.
Absolutely. And once again, I always appreciate having you on. I'm sure we need to set one up with Professor Jang. It's been difficult to figure out the coordination, but seems like the war very predictably is back. And that means maybe we'll be speaking more frequently if you have the time. It's always a pleasure speaking to you, Professor Marandi.
Thank you very much for having me. And I pray for better days for everyone. And we all have to be steadfast and have faith in God. He knows best.
Right. Yeah. And please be safe. Inshallah, you stay protected. Your place is getting bombed as we speak. So I may Allah protect you and increase you. Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum assalam.